Good? Man, y'all might be in trouble. I think I had a little bit too much coffee. Just saying. Maybe not just a little bit. The second service might be real disappointing because I might crash. And so, man, we're going to pick right back up in Nehemiah. We've been in our series. This is week number 5. Last week we had the snow day, so we just showed an old message. And so just going to give you a quick recap, and so we're all on the same page. Remember when we jumped into Nehemiah, what was going on? Nehemiah is the cupbearer to the king of Persia. His name is King Artaxerxes. He hears that the Jerusalem is in shambles, the wall is down and broken, the gates are burned down, and man, he is just broken in his spirit. And so, man, do y'all hear that feedback on there? Sometimes I do, and so I don't know if you do or not. He's broken in his spirit. And so Nehemiah will go to the Lord and he will pray. He will seek his face. He says, God, you're great. God, you're good. Show me favor as I go before this man. The man he's talking about is the king. In chapter 2, we see that conversation happen. It's about 4 months will pass. Remember, Nehemiah goes before King Artaxerxes, and he's sad, and the king says, what is wrong with your face? Remember that? He says, what's wrong with your face? And Nehemiah's like, well, I'm sad because of what's going on in my homeland. And so the king says, well, what do you want? And Nehemiah says one of those little arrow prayers. And he says, hey, I want you to send me. I want you to give me safe travel. And I want you to provide for this. I want you to finance this deal. And it's amazing what happens when God's in it, because the king absolutely does all those things and more. In the next chapter, or later in that chapter, we see Nehemiah get to Jerusalem. He has all this entourage with him, and he doesn't just start stacking bricks. Instead, what he does is he starts surveying the lay of the land. He makes a plan, and then he meets with everybody and says, y'all in some big trouble. He doesn't do that. He says, we're in trouble. Remember, he's a leader. He takes ownership. But he says, you know what? If we have a plan, if we hold the rope together and we pull together in this deal, then we can get through it. And there can be a hope and a future in this place. And then the last time we were together, we were in chapter 3. And I told you that chapter 3 is a little bit different than others. We don't go verse by verse through chapter 3, but we did pick out some highlights. And I'll tell you what we talked about. Chapter 3 is basically talking about every family that was building a certain one of the gates back. And so we talked about these things here, that no job is beneath you, that when we start building, we start at home first, and we finish what we start. And last but not least, it all starts and finishes at the sheep gate. Now, if you weren't here and you go, I don't really understand that part, go back and watch the message. The sheep gate is where it starts for a believer. Jesus is the sheep gate. He is the gate. He tells us in John chapter 10. With that said, we're going to pray and we're going to get after chapter 4. Father, thank you for your loving grace, and I thank you for those families today that are making this commitment to raise their child to follow you. Lord, I pray as we are with them and we walk through life with them, that we will encourage them, we will love on them, we'll be good examples as well. Lord, I pray that we'll honor you as we go through the scripture today. Pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, chapter 4. Go ahead and turn there. All right, it says, when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and was greatly incensed. He ridiculed the Jews and in the presence of his associates and the army of Samaria. Now, have you ever been around somebody that's just like always mad? You know that person you're thinking about right now. Well, you ever gone to him and go, why are you so mad? Well, if you're wondering why Sanballat is so mad, I believe this is the reason why. He is the governor of Samaria, and he had been levying taxes on his people, but all the way down into this area as well. And so when Nehemiah came with the blessing of the king, it kind of cut into his pocket. And if you want to get somebody mad, get in their pocket, right? Let's continue. It says, what are these feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they finish in a day? Can they bring the stones back to life from those heaps of rubble? Burned as they are, Tobiah the Ammonite, who was at his side, said, what if they are building, even a fox climbing up on it would break down their wall of stones. Now they are mocking them, they're ridiculing them, they're hating on them, right? And so we can all kind of relate to that. Even when they're talking about the fox jumping on the wall and knocking it down, we don't see a lot of foxes, but I kind of think of a cat jumping on my fence and it's real nimble, right? It's not gonna hurt anything. Think about if it did, that was a pretty weak fence, right? Well, that's what they're trying to do here to the Jews. You know that one of the greatest tools of the enemy is called discouragement. That if you can just get somebody a little bit discouraged, if you can just get them a little bit frustrated, if you get them just to doubt just a little bit, guess what? Many times they stop. Because discouragement can lead to one of two things. Let me tell you a little story. When I was probably 12 or 13 years old, I started playing golf, and I was a horrible golfer. I mean, horrible. We would go out to the golf course. It's probably one of the worst golf courses in America, by the way. It was TSTI. Anybody remember that one? It was the old air base. It was probably good when the air base was there, but they didn't have the air base guys picking the weeds anymore. And so it was bad, but so was the golf game. So they matched. And so I would go out there with my family and some of my friends. And even though they're my family and my friends and they love me, they would mock and ridicule me because I was so bad. I was so bad that I had trouble squaring the club on the back of the ball. I usually hit it like with an open face. Not a good thing if you know anything about golf. And so I got tired of the ridicule and the mockery. Their love, by the way, just a love that they were showing, that one summer, I think I was about 15 years old, I went to my mom and dad and I said, hey, will y'all get me a golf net for the backyard? And if you're in here right now, I don't recommend it. It tears up your yard, and if you miss the net, it hits houses. And I did, right? And so, especially if you can't square the club, it's not safe. But I asked them for that golf net and they got it for me. And so that summer, when I was 15 years old, I hit so many golf balls. I mean, my hands were all ripped up, but I learned how to square the club on the back of a ball. I worked hard. And what I did, you would never want to do. What I had to do is I had to flip the club almost upside down and then grip it, because I naturally don't square the club. But here's what I want you to know is that mockery and ridicule, which they loved me, but they were teasing with me, it actually motivated me. That ridicule and mockery and discouragement could do one of two things. Either it will stifle you or it will motivate you to go forward. Now, if you're stifled, here's what it looks like for Nehemiah. If they were to get stifled by the ridicule, what they would do is they would start stepping over bricks instead of picking them up. Anybody look at their life and go, hey, I've been stepping over things instead of picking it up? Discouragement will do that. Discouragement will make you put up with things longer than you ever should have. You just keep on walking. Let's continue. Verse 4. It says, hear us, our God. This is Nehemiah talking, by the way. For we are despised. Turn their insults back on their own heads. Give them over as plunder in a land of captivity. Do not cover up their guilt or blot out their sins from your sight. For they have thrown insults in the face of the builders. Nehemiah is saying a prayer to the Lord, and it's not a real good one, right? I mean, it's not like, he's like, just love on them and be nice. He's not saying that. But guess what he's not doing here? He's not talking to the enemy. He's not saying like, you need to, and I'm not saying there's not a time that we have to go talk to the enemy. But what he's doing first is he's giving God the first chance. He's taking it to the Lord to let the Lord fight the battle. Let me tell you a little story. I remember through the years, I've shared with you guys different stories about my dad and the wisdom that he gives me. And my dad's a really wise man. But this is one time I did not take his advice, and it was for the right reason. When we started this church almost 6 years ago now, I remember this happening. You know, it just happens when you start something. Sometimes there's going to be some resistance. And somebody was on Facebook, and they messaged my mom. They messaged my mom and they said, hey, I want you to know what people are saying about Matt, and it's not good. My mom told my dad, and my mom and dad were parents, and so they were protective of their kid. And so I went over to my parents' house, and my dad said, hey, Matt, you need to go shut that down. You need to do something about this. And I usually take my dad's advice, and I didn't. Instead, I said, hey, Dad, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let God fight that battle. And I want you to know that there's times that we have to fight, but there's some times that we need to let God fight the battle. And God did, and he kind of worked those things out. Now, the ridicules come. Nehemiah has asked God to do the fighting of the battle. And then what happens is they just go ahead and quit and go to Chick-fil-A. No, they keep going. Here's what I want you to know about opposition. If we're not careful, opposition and ridicule and mockery will become an idol to us. And it will dominate our time, our minds, and our conversations. You ever been around somebody that every time you have coffee with them, every time you have a meal with them, they're still talking about the same old thing? The same old opposition, the same old boss at work, the same old frustration in a relationship. And that thing they're talking about is an idol in their life. Man, we don't want to be there. There's only one thing we're supposed to worship, and it's not supposed to be something like that. Verse 6, it says, so we rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half its height. For the people worked with all their heart. Now, remember these people that were building this wall, these were not necessarily carpenters. They weren't masonries. They didn't have a skill. They weren't just guys that went around building walls everywhere. They were people that cared about their homeland, that were trying to restore something. And so they weren't doing it with all their ability. They were doing it with all their heart. And I've told you 1,000 times over that I would rather somebody that has a lot of heart than somebody with a lot of potential. Somebody that has a lot of heart versus somebody that has a lot of talent. You know, when it comes down to it, the people who do and the people who don't in life, the one ingredient that's common for the people that do is want to. You just gotta want it. It kind of popped in my head. One of the things my dad always told me. My dad always tells me that college is perseverance. And I believe that's true. You know, most colleges are not so hard that just only the brilliant get through them. But those who persevere do. Those that just like, man, I want it bad enough, I'm going to finish. And so it matters. Your heart matters, your desire matters. If we have that desire and we're working together, usually we can get it through about everything. Other thing I want you to see right here is it says that they had built the wall to half its height. And so basically they're halfway done, right? Anybody understand and know that halfway is a dangerous spot? It's a good place to stop too. It's a good place to look at what you've done and see how much time and effort it has taken and think, man, I don't think I can get through it. Halfway is a pivoting point. You gotta make sure you keep going. Some people get halfway through college. Some people get halfway through an interview. Some people get halfway through a test, whatever it may be, halfway through, and they just turn back and quit. Verse 7. It says, but when Sanballat, Tobiah, and the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the people of Ashdod heard that the repairs to Jerusalem's wall had gone ahead and that the gaps were being closed, they were very angry. Still kind of weirds me out. I mean, why would you be angry when somebody's welfare is being improved? But verse 8, it says, they all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it. Quick story. A couple of weeks ago, I was over at my dad's house and we were watching some TV, and Elisa was there and Bentley was there. And Bentley was kind of lounging back in a recliner, and it's kind of a fancy recliner. It used to be my mom's recliner, and it had a remote control. And so you can like put your legs up and move. I mean, it's really cool, right? And so he's sitting there, and he's kind of laying back watching TV, and all of a sudden we hear click, 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 click. He's messing with that remote. And Elisa gives him one of them looks like, I'm about to get you, right? She's like, Bentley. And so it got quiet for a second, and then after a little while you heard click, 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 click. And then I go, hey, Bentley, I'm gonna lose my mind, right? You got me? You know what I'm talking about? Here's what you need to know about frustration. You wanna frustrate somebody, keep doing what frustrates them. That's the truth. Sanballat and his crew, the reason why they're frustrating, the reason why they're frustrated is because Nehemiah and his team, they keep doing what's frustrating them. They keep building that wall. They keep moving forward. They keep progressing. You want to frustrate the enemy? Keep doing God's work. Keep doing what God's called you to do. Keep doing those things. That's how this works, church. Verse 9, it says, but we prayed to our God and posted a guard day and night to meet this threat. Notice they didn't stop. They just adapted when they need to. I love it. I like to say that Nehemiah had a can't stop, won't stop attitude. And if you don't know what that is, I'll tell you real fast because I love this example. Can't stop, won't stop is this. At least it is for me. I don't know what it is for you. Can't stop is this. Have you ever been running down like a slope? You know what I'm talking about? You start running like boom, 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 right? And your legs don't stop. You just keep one after another, or you're going to fall on your face, right? So you can't stop. Well, at some point, you get to the bottom of that slope. When you get to the bottom of the slope and it levels out, if you're going to keep going forward, it won't be because you can't stop, it's because you won't stop. Are you hear what I'm saying? At some point in life, you're going and you're like, man, this is awesome. But resistance comes and it gets harder, and you have to make a choice. Am I going to stop or not? And so you have to go from I can't stop to I won't stop. And Nehemiah has one of those attitudes like, man, I can't stop, but I won't stop either. He refuses to stop the good work that God has called him to. Verse 10. Meanwhile, on the prairie, meanwhile, the people in Judah said, now this is their own people, okay? The people in Judah said, the strength of the laborers is giving out, and there is so much rubble that we cannot rebuild the wall. Also, our enemies said, before they know it or see us, we will be right there among them and will kill them and put an end to the work. In verse 12, it says, then the Jews who live near came and told us 10 times over, wherever you turn, they will attack us. How would you like to hear that 10 times over? I don't like to hear nothing 10 times over. What if I do this? Look what I can do, look what I can do, look what I can do, look what. No, you don't want to hear it, do you? You get real fast, right? Think about somebody says, they're going to kill you, they're going to kill us, they're going to kill us. You don't want to hear it. They sowed discord, and it started working its way through the Jewish people. And I want you to know how dangerous this is. You know, the greatest nations and the empires that ever in the history of time, you know how most of them ended? They imploded internally. Discord, there was somebody that was discontent that broke something up. I was thinking about this week, about what internal frustration and friction can do to something. Because we always think about the opposition that's out here. Most of the time, the worst opposition is in here. I was thinking about a church in Amarillo that used to be one of the fastest growing churches in the United States. Used to be over there on Bell. Some of you guys went there. Got up to about 3,500 people. Do you know why it ended? I always ask one of the guys that we used to be a leader over there. I asked him one time why it ended, and he said it real simple. He said, sin in the camp. Internal. It wasn't something from the outside. It wasn't with some opposition out there like, well, that they were mad at us. No, it's internal. When we allow internal to get into us, it can destroy us. Gossip can destroy us. Internal fighting can destroy us. You're working against yourself. Sometimes the opposition comes from the outside, but sometimes the inside. Now, we're going to get to verse 13 through 15. Or 14. I'm going to read it, but let me just tell you this little thing real quick. I was walking down the hallway 2 weeks ago, because this is supposed to be last week's message. And I was walking with Ed McConnell, and Ed said, hey, Matt, you know, this week you got like the brave heart of crescendos. You know what crescendo is if I've been around here. I'm like, yeah, we do. The brave heart of crescendos. And I'm about to read it to you, but we'll end our message on it today in a few moments. 13 through 14, it says, therefore, I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families. You know why you post them by families? Because families stick together and they fight for one another. With their swords, spears, and bows. After I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and daughters, your wives and your homes. You know, there's a song that's out. It came out really at the beginning of COVID. It's called The Blessing. And I love The Blessing. One reason is because it's biblical. And a lot of Christian music really isn't biblical if you really get to listen to it. But one of the things I like in that song is when it talks about your children and their children and their children. it reminds me what we're fighting for. We're fighting for every generation to know Jesus. You know, when I was thinking today, this morning, as I was kind of running through this, about some families within our church that I've known for quite a while, and how their lives have shifted because of them making a choice to follow after Jesus. And because they're following after Jesus, guess what happens? Naturally, their kids are more likely to follow Jesus, their children, their children, their children. We're fighting for future generations. We're fighting for people right now. And what you do matters. The way you honor God in your life, your kids are watching. And one day, that's what they'll think is the way it's supposed to look. This is kind of a side note, and then we'll get our worship team up here. It's just something to think about here. Nehemiah, when he got to Jerusalem, do you ever think about this, that Nehemiah didn't come to fight? He came to build. But sometimes in order to build, you have to fight. See, sometimes in life, sometimes we have to pull the slingshot back and fight, and sometimes we just let God fight. Remember, in the Bible, it's like that. Sometimes there's examples that go one way or the other. Sometimes we build, and sometimes we fight. Sometimes God fights, and sometimes he builds. But we seek him regardless. Verse 15, I'm going to read a bunch here to you, and then I got a couple of stories. It says, when our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot and that God had frustrated it, we all returned to the wall, each to our own work. From that day on, half the men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, bows, and armor. The officers posted themselves behind all the people of Judah who were building the wall. Those who carried the material did the work with one hand and held a weapon with the other. And each of the builders wore his sword at his side as he worked. But the man who sounded the trumpet stayed with me. Then I said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, the work is extensive and spread out, and we are widely separated from each other along the wall. Wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, join us there. Our God will fight for us. Just a little side note, I can't help it, is whenever you see the work of God happening, join it. Join it. God's moving, join in. 21. So we continue the work with half the men holding spears from the first light of dawn till the stars came out. At that time, I also said to the people, have every man and his helper stay inside Jerusalem at night, so they can serve us as guards by night and as workers by day. Neither I nor my brothers, nor my men, nor the guards with me took off their clothes. Each had his weapon, even when he went for water. And I bet they smelled really bad. If our worship team wants to go ahead and come out, and I'm going to shut down our service a little different this week than typical. And so I want to make sure I tell you this stuff real quick. If you came in today and you really need somebody to pray with you, I want you to know in the foyer we have a room over to this side. It's our prayer room, and there's always somebody in there during our services. And we want to pray with you. Or if you just came in today and you just want to give a prayer request for somebody to pray over, or we have cards in the back of the seats, you can fill those out, and we have a team of people that will pray over those. If you want somebody to contact you, we'll contact you. We want to pray people who pray. Or maybe there's somebody walked in here and you don't even have a clue about Jesus, and you're like, man, I want to know more about him, and guess what? Man, I would love to talk to you. One of our pastors would love to talk to you, or somebody with a big smile on their face, because that person has the joy of the Spirit of God in them, and they want to talk to you about Jesus. And so I want to make sure that we don't ever neglect that. With that said, I'm going to tell you a story, and we're going to close. The crescendo scripture is, remember the Lord. He is great and awesome. You know, remembering is such a valuable thing. It is. It can be harmful as well. You see, when we remember things, we need to remember not so we can wallow in our past and our struggles and hurts and those things. No. We remember to remind ourselves of what God has done, about how he's good and faithful and what he's brought us from. That's what we do with remembering. And remembering is always valuable too. We need to be able to do that. And so there's some things we just should be able to remember. Now, when I was thinking about it this week, I was thinking about when Jesus in the Gospels, he's got this opportunity to feed like a lot of people. I mean, some people are thinking like 5,000, but no, it's more like probably like 20,000. And they don't really have anything. And there's this one boy walking by. I always feel bad for him. And he's got 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. He's got like a Cane's meal. He's just going to take it to mom and dad, right? And they're like, oh, there's lunch for everybody. And so Jesus has everybody sit down. Y'all know the story, right? The disciples help distribute the food. And man, it's amazing, right? Think about the disciples, and you're a part of that miracle. Are you ever going to forget that? But they did. Do you know there's another time in the Gospels where they had a very similar situation? Even some scholars think it didn't happen twice. It did. And they came to a moment where they needed food, and Jesus was like, we need to get some food. And they're like, where would we get food at? It's like, I don't know. And Jesus was like, don't you remember? Don't you remember the 5,000, how the 2 and the 5, and there's all these leftovers? Church, we got to remember the goodness of God. We got to remember some things. And so I got one more story if you guys want to stand to your feet. Probably somewhere around 10 years ago, I was preaching in my previous church, and I was walking on the stage just like I do here. And I remember every time I would get to this side of the stage, there was a lady that I would look at right over here. And God was doing something in her. At first, she was kind of squirming in her seat a little bit, but I knew she was real intense. She was listening really good, and the music was playing, and I kept walking back over there, and at that point, she began to cry. And so service ended, and I remember going out to the foyer, and her husband grabbed me. And he said, hey, madam, my wife's back in the back, and she's surrendering her life to Jesus. I'm like, oh man, that's good, right? That's good. See, who I'm talking about is PJ and Tara Johnson. Y'all may know them. PJ runs Love in Action. Tara's over Tent City. I mean, they've been amazing people for the kingdom of God, just servants for the kingdom. I'm so thankful for them. But what happened 2 weeks later, I'll never forget. We had baptisms, and PJ had the opportunity to have a microphone, and he always jokes we should never give him a microphone, but sometimes that happens. And so he had a microphone in his hand, and he begins to say that he had been praying for his wife for 10 years. 10 years that she would surrender her life to Jesus. Church, you know how faithful that is? You know how long 10 years is? Man, we're so impatient. I want you to try something today when you leave church. When you leave church, go to a stoplight, and when it turns green, wait 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, honk, right? We are not patient at all. We can't even get 5 seconds. Think about 10 years waiting to see God move, waiting to see God do something in somebody's life for them to surrender. Well, guess what? Through that, I bet you PJ thought about something. Throughout the whole time, I believe he continually reminded himself what he was fighting for. Because if we remember what we're fighting for, it matters. Church, I want you to think like this, and I want you to remember our role in this deal. Think about who we're fighting for, and if you can, I want you to do this. I want you to remember the Lord, because he is great and he's awesome. And I want you to fight. I want you to fight for your families. I want you to fight for your sons and daughters. I want you to fight for your homes, your communities. Fight, 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 fight.